Hello, it's time for another game review, and today I'm looking at a Silverbird game from 1988 called Trojan Warrior. And this is a very rare game to find out there. Never seen any copies for sale on UK eBay, and I actually picked up my copy from eBay from a German seller. It cost €8 if I remember correctly, which translated to, at the time, about £7.25. So one of the most expensive games I've bought for the collection so far. So let's check out Trojan Warrior. As always then, let's start with the packaging, and the front cover is pretty bland. It's the usual Silverbird range packaging. The Trojan Warrior logo at the top there is fairly unremarkable, and this picture is all kind of crammed into the front cover there. Not a lot of detail around it, and you can see you've got the Trojan Warrior sitting on the back of his winged horse and firing some lightning bolts or something like that out of his fingers. It's not very good, to be honest. Spine's got the Trojan Warrior logo and also the wing of that horse kind of spread across it as well. And then on the back cover we've got the usual 4 screenshots, all of which look pretty similar. In fact, 3 of them have got exactly the same mountain range in them by the looks of things. The one at the top left's a little bit different. It's got some snow-covered houses. You can see the Trojan Warrior on his horse is a pretty big looking sprite there. And finally, the description of the game on the back says, "Our hero, the Trojan Warrior, rides out on a winged stallion to rescue the princess." So looking inside, we've got the usual sort of stuff, including the forthcoming Silverbird titles, which includes Trojan Warrior, the very game we're looking at right now. Also mentioned there is Future Ball, which is a game that wasn't released, which I've mentioned in a previous video quite some time ago now. And there's also got the thing about the what do you think about the packaging, which is not much, to be perfectly honest. And the mail order stuff, and so then there's just a 1 page of instructions. Trojan Warrior, copyright Andrew Glaister. And it says, "A mysterious horseman who rides a winged stallion has come from another time and place to save a princess whose awesome magical powers are being used against her will for the forces of evil. Only the warrior can battle through the 5 evil-infested regions. Only he can reach the princess." It goes on to say, "Shoot creatures to gain extra weapons, collect flashing pods to add to your existing weapons, enter the transport at the end of each stage to enter the time tunnel, and in the time tunnel avoid the walls. If you collide with the walls, you'll return to the start of the previous stage." Then we've got some loading instructions. And finally, the gameplay instructions at the bottom just say, use a joystick in port 2 of the Commodore 64, press F1 to pause the game and F7 to quit. So pretty basic instructions, bit of discoloration on the packaging there as well, by the way. But yeah, generally speaking, pretty average, it has to be said, for the instructions. So as you can see, not a very impressive loading screen as befits one of these Silverbird releases. It just says in plain text, Trojan Warrior is loading. It's got a scrolling message saying please be very patient while the game loads, and at the bottom you've got the copyright information for Silverbird software and the Highlanders, and it says at the bottom there, "Sorry, but this may take some time." So they really want to labour the point that it's going to take a while to load this game, but otherwise it's very unremarkable as usual. So the game is loaded, and after slowly drawing the title Odysseus at the top of the screen, it finally starts by showing the high score table, which is a load of zeros for everyone, and a scrolling message across the bottom. And the one thing to mention first is the name of the game, not Trojan Warrior as it said on the cover, but Odysseus. This is another one of those Silverbird range games where the game was called one thing and they've packaged it and marketed it as something else, much like they did with Paceman Pat and Blip Video Classics. There's a few other games like that as well. Olay was rebranded as Raging Beast in the earlier Silver Range packaging. No idea why they did it. Don't particularly agree with it in this case. Trojan Warrior is a reasonably good name, but Odysseus was a pretty good name as well, so I don't know why they did it, but they did. So this very long scrolling message is going across the bottom of the screen, which is giving you the plot of the game, which is basically that a princess has been kidnapped and you've got to rescue her by flying a flying horse and killing stuff, basically. So some nice music on the title screen. It will eventually tell you who programmed the game and did the music when it gets through all this. I think it's about to tell you the short version. Yeah, in other words, this is a progressive shoot 'em up with 5 stages, a sub-game between each, and plenty of nasties to zap. It then goes on to tell you about the power-up system, avoiding the walls in the tunnel, shoot everything else in sight. Press F1 to pause, F3 to toggle between music and sound, which it didn't tell you in the manual, and F7 to quit a game. And it goes on to say the Highlanders' first game as a group. We are Fuzz for programming, Dib for backdrops, Job for sprites. And the music and sound effects were done by Steve Eggman Barrett. So these are, I think, a bunch of guys from the demo scene that went on to create a game, or at least one game, this being it. And so there you go, that's the sort of stuff that they did. Lots of nice moving, wobbling effects on the text, on the title screen, scrolling messages, all the sort of thing that you'd expect from the demo scene. And they went on to do the game, and here's a demo of the game itself, which, as you can see, is a scrolling shoot 'em up. We'll get onto that in a moment, of course. In fact, let's get onto it now. Okay, so as you'll have seen already from the demo, you are a gigantic winged horse that fills up a lot of the screen. Not really what you want in a shoot 'em up game, a very big target. And you've got to scroll along in this area, which seems like a nice wintry scene, shoot the baddies and get to the end of the level, basically. So pretty straightforward horizontal scrolling shooter. One thing to note is when you shoot the enemies, it's building up a gauge on one of the things on the status bar there, and when it reaches the top you get a power up. So I've just got the first power up. Don't really know what difference that makes, to be honest. Another thing to mention is you can't die when colliding with the landscape, which I like. That's not a bad thing at all. Nicely drawn landscape. So yeah, a variety of enemies, nicely animated, nice explosions when you blow them up. The horse is also very nicely animated with its wings flapping and its legs moving. So just got to get to the end of this stage and then we'll see the next part of the game. Got another power up there. Again, not entirely sure what that's done. Some more enemies to shoot here, so let's shoot those. And there's a second power up. And now this one is very obvious. You've got a little remote that moves around you, firing. And here's the end of the first level, and basically you just end up with a star to go into, and that'll then take us into a time tunnel which will take us to the next level. And here we get some music. You can have music on the other stage, by the way. That's toggleable by pressing F3. So here all you've got to do is make your way through the tunnel, the flashing blue orbs in this case, without hitting anything. And eventually you'll get to the end of that and move on to the next stage. So pretty nice presentation so far in terms of the graphics and sound. Music's decent, the sound effects are pretty average, but the music's nice. Nice status bar at the bottom with lots of detail on it. I think I'm nearly at the end here. There we go, and on to level 2. And now we're flying over some islands in a watery sort of environment. Lots of sea with island craggy things in. So basically the enemies get a little bit more taxing. You've got to make your way through these swarms of birds, but then you get another load of the flying things from the first level. I'm not really sure what they are. Some kind of winged nasties, demons or something. There's a Loch Ness monster there to shoot. Not necessarily the Loch Ness monster, it might be the monster from another loch, I don't know. And then you've got what looks like Gribblies from Gribblies Day Out. And what I didn't mention is on the first level there were some wizards firing at you, which look very much like the wizard from Whizball, and I think there is some sort of nods to earlier Commodore 64 games by the programmers and graphics designers of this game. So there we go, got some more of those power-ups that I'm not sure what they do. Maybe they must make you fire faster, I'm not sure. Some volcanoes, throwing some particle effects up. I don't think they kill you, but it's nice to shoot them anyway. Actually, they do kill you. There we go, that's just showing me that. So yeah, you need to really fly under the volcano to avoid them. Or shoot them a lot. I'm trying not to get hit by them this time. And then we've got a number 4 power up. Don't know what that is, but oh, okay, some kind of laser beam. More gribbly things. Oh, get all those as well. And now I've got a bouncing ball that's just bouncing towards the bottom of the screen and firing, so that's useful for the ground-based enemies. This is one of them games where if you lose your power-ups some way through the game, it does seem to become more difficult. Definitely lost speed. Maybe that's what the number 1 is, I'm not sure. So what have we got coming up here? More Gribblies. More bats and whatever else comes with them. And I think number 2 is probably the speed on there. That's actually the the remote thing, so I'm really not sure what speeds you up. I think it must be the number 1 power up. I've just noticed it's got a little arrow next to it, so that does seem to fit with that. So let's try and avoid those again. Shoot some more birds. Get more lasers. I should switch to the music, by the way, shouldn't I really? I think the music, it's fair to say, is better than the sound effects. So yeah, more of these things. It's fairly easy when you've got lots of power-ups, and it does get difficult as a result of that when you haven't got power-ups, when you've lost them all. So the moral of that story is don't lose any lives, I suppose. Looks like you can actually shoot bullets with these lasers as well. So here we go at the end of level 2 now. So let's go into the next time tunnel, which is a nice shade of pink this time. And after starting off slowly, it does actually speed up quite a bit. So you've got to react quite quickly here. If you die in this tunnel, by the way, you get sent back to the start of the preceding level. Wow, yeah, so this is a lot more difficult than the first one. But I'm still doing alright. I'll say that, I'll probably crash into something now. It's just a quick reaction test really to progress down the tunnel. That's a bit naughty. If I'd gone up above that dividing line there, I would have crashed into the scenery, which you couldn't really see when you had to make the decision about which way to go. But luckily I made the right decision. So here we go, back onto the 3rd stage now, and lots of stuff to shoot again. Birds this time. Don't seem to collect. Oh, that's killed me now. This is going to put me in big trouble now, I suspect, because I've got no power-ups, and I imagine trying to get through this level, yeah, without any speed and without any decent weapons is quite difficult. So it's the usual curse of pretty much every shoot 'em up of this nature, definitely horizontal ones in particular, where you lose all your power-ups. Oh, you've got to go through those. These red birds, you've actually got to go through the middle of them, I think, because they're indestructible. Which is all the more difficult because I've got no power-ups. But yeah, you've got to go through the middle of them there. But then the blue ones you've got to shoot, so... Oh, what's this? A giant dragonfly? At least it's a new kind of enemy. Just really need that power up there. There we go. That'll help a little bit. Got a couple of lives left. See how we get on. Oh, get on by dying, it seems. This is about as far as I've got in previous playthroughs, so we'll see what happens. Oh, instant death from Volcano this time. Yeah, it's not really fair when you lose all your lives and you've got no chance to recover. What's happening here then? Oh, back to the blue things. The birds. Oh no. Yeah, really needed that power up, but in order to collect that power up, I had to get close to the volcano bits, and that's probably game over. So there we go. I'm not really sure it's worth playing through again. I think you've seen all you're going to see, because I suspect I'm not going to get much further than that if I did play again. So I'm just going to go straight to the review scores. So firstly, the packaging, not particularly impressed by that. I don't really understand why they changed the name from Odysseus to Trojan Warrior. The front cover image is not particularly good, and the instructions are lacking some information that would have been useful. So I'm going to give the packaging a 5. In-game presentation is pretty good though. Got a nice title screen. It's not amazing, but it's nicely presented. Got a high score table and the scrolling message that gives you a lot more information than the instructions did, along with a nice tune. So I'm going to give the presentation a 7. In-game graphics are good. You've got the animation of the main sprite, which is a bit big, but the animation is excellent. The enemies are varied and nicely detailed and got good animation on too, and the backgrounds are really nice, so I'm going to give the graphics an 8. Sound is good too. You can choose from sound effects or music in-game. The music's decent, sound effects not so good, but they are overall pretty nice, so I'm going to give the sound a 7. And finally, playability, well, it's a fairly run-of-the-mill scrolling shooter for the era, but the power-up system is quite unique, where you've got to shoot the enemies to sort of earn the power-ups. The more enemies you shoot, the more power-ups you get. That's quite a nice mechanic, and you've also got the time tunnel in between levels is a nice idea too. It mixes things up a bit, and some quite varied attack patterns from the enemies as well. So overall, I think it's a nicely playable game, and I'm going to give it an 8. That gives it an overall score of 8.1, and I think it was well worth $1.99. It's an excellent shooter for the price. So there you go, that's my thoughts on Odysseus, or Trojan Warrior as Firebird renamed it. If you've got any good thoughts about the game, then let me know in the comments. That's all for this review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.